never heard anybody do that before. And I thought, well, I'm struck by a couple things. One, that he mentioned that to the rest of the leadership team, and secondly, that that's not been mentioned before, and why? Why is it that we're so, afraid to, kind of, that there's a naivete that's associated with some of those deeper feelings, or, that looks not like our expert self, or what?
Not
so that's,
professional.
so that's kind of, so I think inviting it is really important, and to the extent that you feel comfortable modeling it, because that's a risk too.
Yeah.
We have somebody to comment back in.
Hi there. Thank you for having us today. It's been a mind-changing and wonderful experience so far. I came into today with the thought of how do I, as a young nurse leader, change the world and have an opportunity to move forward and better the health of not only our culture, but cultures around the world. And as I hear the comments and some of the questions that are being asked in the room, I start to find answers to these deep questions, or this deep question. And one thing that certainly comes to mind is Margaret Mead, and the idea that a small group of people have the power to change the world, and we do that by passing the baton. And so as I have the opportunity to work with mentors and build my skill set, I want to look to deeper thought and look back on my own story. And through the conversations that have happened in this last panel, I find that the stories that are represented are really the stories of a culture of change and the opportunity to transform the world in which we live in. And like it was said, a butterfly's wings flapping can change the world in ways which we would never imagine. And so I think back on my own life and think of people who said, I would never be able to succeed. And then I look at the people now who say, you have the opportunity to make a difference in what you do through simple actions, and really looking at the opportunity in each interaction and being able to build a strong network through our relationships and our ability to connect with one another. And I encourage everybody in the room to just take a moment and find, that special piece of the person who may be sitting next to you, who you never had an opportunity to engage with, and find that time and that precious moment in which we're in to connect. Because ultimately, nursing, health in general, it's about the opportunity to connect with one another and really to be able to appreciate the life in which we live, and also to appreciate the opportunity to give back to this wonderful profession in which we work. So thank you again for giving us this opportunity to connect with one another, to build our network, and to be a mentee or a mentor in this ever-changing and dynamic environment in which we live.
Well said.
Nice.
One, in the Executive Nurse Fellows Program, these are senior leaders in nursing already who are invited at the end of the first of 3 years to reflect on what they would like said when they retire. What would be those? What would be the things that you're actually wanting to be? The impact you're wanting to have, and then to think ahead to that, and then to act and move and accordingly.
Your comment reemphasizes that I think and you heard all the speakers talk about networks. It's the people that make the difference. And we're in an age right now, in fact, where it's become quite in vogue to think that technology is going to solve the problems of the world. Technology is a tool. It's only a tool. I'm sorry, no Bill Gates, but there isn't going to be another app that's going to revolutionize the world without people. And I think in your quest, what I've discovered, and I would expect that most of my colleagues would agree, you have the greatest opportunity for catalyzing change through your network, not through your individual actions, but through the network that you can help foster and encourage and develop.
I think we have a comment over here. Cheryl?
I'm not sure if I'll explain this well, but I'll give it a whirl. I'm Cheryl Robertson, public health nurse, and I teach in the School of Nursing. And I'm often struck by how joy in my work often comes at the most surprising or unlikely moments. And as a public health nurse, I've always liked to think that I like working in very tough places, and I've had an opportunity to work in lots of tough places in the world. Most recently, I've been based in the Congo, and I've met my match. It's a tough neighborhood. And I'll find myself just getting frantic and just, I will feel like this is completely unworkable. This is an impossible situation. I don't even like these people. I don't trust these people, and they don't like me. And what am I doing here? And I fire off emails to folks saying, this is completely unacceptable work situation, so on and so forth. And then I'll sit back and I'll go, oh my God, I'm in the thick of it. This is just the best. and realizing that this, right at this moment in time is where in this abject chaos, it's like I'm getting an opportunity to participate in the real deal. And it's a very interesting thing where I don't feel like I walk around always saying I am joyful in my work, but I realize how much of the time, even when I'm complaining, I'm actually completely in my element.
You're like the wood carver who saw the tree and finally saw the bell stand in the tree because you were present to seeing it.
I think it also speaks, Cheryl, and I've been the recipient of some of those emails. I think this also speaks to the fact that we also need to have a community, a group of close colleagues with whom to blow off steam. Because, regardless of how much we train, we are animals at our core. And to have an emotional reaction to things is normal and appropriate. And I find often that if I'm able to express that emotional reaction in a safe environment, that then I can get to and see the opportunity. But I appreciate your sharing that, both for understanding you better, but also for helping the whole group recognize the importance. I shared one time with someone, I think employee assistance program is one of the best developments in the US. And I use them many times because I've had many opportunities to work in organizations where I got quite frustrated. And they taught me a tool. So Dawn, you're asking tools. So I learned one time. I take notes almost all the time. And I learned that nobody actually sees what I write. And what I was coached to do is that when I have an emotional reaction, write down that. And it is amazingly powerful to write down, this jerk doesn't know what he or she is talking about. And what it allows me is to get rid of that emotion. I've expressed it, and then I can clear my mind and focus. So somebody talked about being present. Being present is a really powerful tool, and it's tough. Reflection, meditation, Linda, are really important ways to work toward that. And we need to be able to deal with that immediate emotional reaction. And so I think that there are some techniques, and it also takes practice, and also to accept our own human frailty. We'll never be perfect.
Kelly's got somebody.
Good morning.
Morning.
First, I want to thank you for your presentation. Excellent, excellent. As each of you was speaking, I was thinking to myself, you did an excellent job in answering that age-old question, am I my brother's keeper? In my profession, there are people that can drive you up a wall. They can be as evil as I don't know what, you know what I'm saying? And you can get to a point where you ask yourself the question when you get up in the morning, why am I going to this church and working with these people who really don't care about anything, And It's stuck into I, whatever. But I'm not here to complain. What I'm saying is, what drives me is that question. Am I my brother's keeper? I heard Dr. Perkins' question in the transformation question. But I guess what I want to ask each of you, what is that question that makes you want to get up in the morning, that drives you during the day, that when you come to that situation, be it difficult, be it impossible, or whatever, you find that strength to get through it? Example, the Good Samaritan on the road. He finds there's a man beaten. Yet he stops versus the priest and the Levi. And he asks the question, well, not so much what will happen to me if I stop and help this man, but what would happen to the man if I do not stop and help him? What is the question that drives you on a daily basis? That's what I want to hear. I heard a lot of good terms today: intention, transformation, communications, love for your work. What is it really, that question that gets you up out of that bed? I need help. Thank you.
I guess I can start off. When I was in my first year in general college, I was racking my brains for a major. And one day my sister said, why don't you try nursing? I'm like, good idea. So I got my nursing assistant's certificate. But when we were doing our training, we were in the nursing home. And it was really dark in the hallway looked like a scary movie. And I still remember this all very vividly. I heard an old woman yelling, help, help. And this was the same woman I said who had these grateful teary eyes 10 years ago. And I was alluding to her. No one fed her, and she was frail, very, very frail. And all I could find when I was searching through the kitchen, it was already maybe 10 p.m. All I could feed her was ice cream. And she was very frail, okay? And then all of a sudden, after maybe the third or fourth bite and giving her some water, she held my hands right here. And I was so shocked by her strength, by gripping me so hard. And her pale blue eyes pierced right through mine. And she said, thank you. And that was a moment that I said, that was it. I am being a nurse. I am making sure no one ever gets treated this way, because that was someone's mom, that was someone's teacher. And when we were talking about this whole interconnectedness, I guess for me, spiritually, I kind of have to see myself in every single one of you, and that we're all connected, and that I would not ever want someone to be treated that way ever again. And so I guess that's what it is. So ever since then, when I see someone ill, either it was actually a couple of weeks ago at Rainbow, grocery shopping, or at work, that same instance always relives this moment. And it's that whatever it was almost something magical. And I think this is why it's so hard for us to kind of describe what it is, because it's almost kind of a magical moment, or this calling, it just dawns onto you, it clicks, and everything makes sense. But I hope that I'm able to articulate it to you in a way that that's what it is. It was this deep, visceral feeling that it just triggered you so hard, and it made me realize that there was a whole larger world out there that has this kind of stuff going on. And I know I'm just one person, but if it's a matter of perspective. At least the people that I touched in this past 5 years hopefully got the best care that they could receive in their most vulnerable times. And I think I had that strong conviction, and that's what keeps me going.
That's a good example of, there's a leadership fellow I follow. His name is Lance Secretan. He's got a great book out. It's called Spark, Flame, Torch. But what he does is he has people craft a why be do statement. And he does it in a very interesting way. He asks people to figure out what are the two most threatening things in the world today based on their experience. What are the things that are going to poison the world or stifle the world? And he calls those terra threats. And then he asks people to figure out what the opposite of the terra threats are, and he calls those terra fixes. And once you deal with the complementary nature of the terra threat and the terra fix, he believes that's your spark, that is your destiny, that is your character, And so you craft then a why be do statement. Why are you here? Who will you be? And what will you do? And so he's got a very nice tool, little worksheet. Just Google why be do, and you might find that a very powerful experience.
I ask the question every morning of what can I contribute today? And somebody talked about reflection. I spend a lot of time reflecting on what my action, the implications of the actions that I take. And so it's guided by a vision of what I want to see the world to be. And I use that as an opportunity then it's now second nature to say, what can I do in whatever situation I'm in with an individual or an organization or in a meeting? What can I contribute that will help move us toward that vision? And that gets me up in the morning.
Yeah. I think that's true too, and I think that as a young health professional, when you start asking that, you may be asking, how can I make my unit run better? And every time you take a different position or have a different platform, you're asking a different question, how can I make this better? It astounds me that to have moved from your experience to worried about the burden of healthcare costs in this country now, and what we are all doing that exacerbates that cost problem, and trying to figure out how we as health professionals can contribute to bringing those costs down so that everyone can have health care, and which is a fundamental passion for me. So
I think we are getting the
signal.
that
The high sign.
But I also understand that there are some housekeeping details that you want to communicate to people.
Dates on things right after lunch. So we're going to go to lunch now and come back at 1:15, and she's got a few housekeeping, and then we'll move into some self-assessment. This is really nicely leading into some of the questions we've posed. Jane Barnsteiner is going to help us look a little inwardly after this wonderful session. Excellent.
Round of applause for our sages.